we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining the session today. This is going to be a little bit of a different session from for those of you that have been on previous sessions and what you are used to. Typically, we focus solely on Citrix and VDI troubleshooting and monitoring, but we're going to expand it a bit today. And that's largely based on what we are hearing in the marketplace and when we're talking to customers and others looking for monitoring and troubleshooting solutions. It seems like everybody is in a different stage of their digital transformation journey. And so our focus today is going to be on supporting you regardless of what stage you are in that journey. So my name is Kiri Pence. I'm part of the product team here at Goliath. I'm joined today by Martin Quinnen. He's one of our client success engineers, and he is the one who will be driving a lot of the demo. We'll do just a little bit of an introduction to Goliath for those of you who are new to us, and then we're going to spend most of our time inside the technology today. Just a couple of things quick, some housekeeping things. We want you to be engaged during the session, so if you've got questions, ask them. We've got a question and answer panel in the GoToWebinar toolbar. Go ahead and put your questions in there. You can ask them at any point during the session. Some of them we may try to get to, in real time during the session, and some we'll try to get to at the end. Anything that we don't have a chance to get to or we don't have a solid answer for you, we'll certainly follow up with you on that. Before we jump into the session itself, into the content, we will launch a quick poll. That's really just to kind of give us, myself and Martin, a gauge as to where we should focus most of our attention during the during the demo portion of this when we're going through use cases, understanding what technology you guys are using, where you want to go, where your focus areas are. And then at the end of the webinar, when you X out, there'll be a brief 3-question survey. If you don't mind just taking 30 seconds to fill that out, that helps us with understanding where you're at and things that you want to see and learn about in upcoming sessions. So again, we'll launch a poll here in just a moment. Then we're going to just jump right into digital transformation, talking about observability for that journey when you guys are embarking on that, and how you can still anticipate, troubleshoot, and document end user experience issues throughout that journey. And then we're going to jump into the demo, which is going to be focused around real use cases. So we'll talk about 3 different customers who are all in different stages of their digital transformation journey, and we'll look at use cases on how they leverage Goliath to help support that. And then at the end, we'll take some time for Q&A. But again, if you put those in the question and answer panel throughout the session, we'll try to get to some of those if they're relevant to the topic that we're talking about mid-session as well. All right, so let me launch a quick poll. Just a moment to pull that up. All right. So what VDI or DaaS technologies are you planning on using over the next 12 months? Now, as you answer this, this is a select all that apply. You may be using Citrix today. You may be considering piloting something else. Maybe you've got multiple VDI or DaaS technologies. It doesn't mean that you're using them today. We're just wanting to understand, again, from a focus standpoint of our demo and our use cases, where we need to spend our time understanding what you guys are going to be using. Citrix, if it's going to be Horizon, if you're going to be using AVD or Amazon Workspaces, or if it's something else like a Parallels or a WorkSpot or something. I don't have that in the poll question, but you can certainly just drop that into the chat as well, and we'll take a note of that. Okay, just another second or so. Okay, go ahead and close that up, and we'll just jump right back in. Perfect. So just an introduction, there are a lot of new people on this. So what we're focused on today is IT observability for hybrid and multi-cloud environments, really supporting you on that digital transformation journey, giving IT professionals the ability to monitor and troubleshoot end user issues regardless of where the user is located or the workload is located, and we're doing this all from a single platform. But delivering this level of visibility, of observability, we're enabling you to move from a reactive posture to a proactive posture. And we're doing that by providing the ability to anticipate issues before end users are actually impacted. When issues do pop up and we can't prevent them all, troubleshoot them quickly, and then documentation that proves root cause of end user experience issues so that permanent resolution can be put in place. And a great example of this would be like, you're in a situation where you're trying to communicate a need to maybe increase bandwidth, and you're talking to the networking team, and you're trying to get, or maybe you're trying to get additional resources from the storage team, but you're not getting anywhere because you don't actually have any data points or documentation that proves that you actually need these things. This is the type of scenario that we help with. We provide the data to be able to communicate with the other parts of the IT organization to ensure that end user experience is always outstanding. Managing EUC end user experience issues is challenging, and that's because IT environments are complex, no big secret. But you're also dealing with people and all of their subjective input. And this extra layer of complexity and the associated variables, that leads to visibility problems. You probably have a lot of different monitoring tools across your IT stack, but the problem is that those are all part of different IT silos, and those tools are focused on their own piece of the IT stack. They're great, they do a great job for what they're built and designed for, but when you have an end user who is experiencing a problem, and each part of the IT team is looking at their individual monitoring tools and everything is checking out, everything looks good, but the end user is still having a poor experience, that becomes a point of frustration and also a point of contention, and that's when the finger pointing starts, which is why we take a different approach. We're changing that paradigm of how IT troubleshoots end user experience, and instead of trying to infer the quality of the end user experience based on those individual elements, we're actually starting with the end user and we're informing outwardly. And that helps you to quickly identify which one, sometimes multiple, parts of the IT stack are actually impacting the end user experience. So imagine a scenario where you have an organization that's using Horizon VDI, but they're considering making a move to AVD. So they initiated a pilot of AVD. In the meantime, there was a recent acquisition which gifted the IT team with some Citrix as well to throw into the mix. Now, to monitor end user experience in a setting like this is going to require a minimum of 10 different tools. And that's just for the EUC part of the stack. It doesn't include any infrastructure. IT migrations can be real challenging. You're dealing with impact to end users, and that's inevitably going to bring emotions to the table as well. So while it's important to have monitoring tools that support each of these IT components, what becomes more valuable is having the ability to have it from a single platform. And so when you look at this this map where you've got Horizon and AVD and you've got some Citrix in the mix, you're looking at 10 plus different tools, lots of context switching for the IT team who is trying to manage this, and none of them are actually correlating data and talking to each other. So that all has to be done manually in the back end. So that just sort of sets this up from a technology perspective and an introduction perspective. Now we're actually going to jump into the technology, and we're going to look at some deeper scenarios that are similar to this one that are real use cases for organizations that are piloting AVD and Amazon Workspaces, organizations that are migrating from on-prem to cloud, and even looking from an MSP's perspective who is managing multiple customers, multiple clients who are on different technologies. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So from our first use case, we're going to focus on an organization that's piloting AVD and Amazon Workspaces. They're actually doing a bake-off between the two. They want to move from thick clients to thin clients, leveraging cloud, but they're not sure if they want to go AVD or if they want to go Amazon Workspaces. So today on-prem, they've got Citrix. They're using thick clients. There's about 4,000 users in total. They're moving to Dell thin clients. One pilot group, 100 users, is going to be on AVD, and another pilot group is going to be on Amazon Workspaces. Now, the challenges that they're trying to overcome with the pilot, there's lots of business reasons why they're moving. So we're just focused on the IT challenges for this. They need to prevent issues that could impact the success and timing of the pilot. And they need centralized monitoring for this. And remember, we were just talking about the fact that you've got multiple monitoring tools really for each EUC component. But when you add multiple EUC technologies to the stack, that's multiples of monitoring tools that go along with that. So let's go ahead and switch over to the technology. All right, so in this instance, they're on-prem, right? They've got Citrix. So they've got the ability to monitor their Citrix environment all within Goliath. We can see all the users. We can see their sessions. We'll dig deeper into this. Martin will actually go deeper into the Citrix side of this here in another use case. We're going to focus this first one on the team that is going to be responsible for monitoring the AVD and Amazon pilot group. But again, you're talking about the same platform to be able to monitor and troubleshoot end users on both. So in this case, first thing I want you to notice is super easy UI, very easy to find everything. All of your environments are here. This is a multiple environment group. So we've got Amazon Workspaces, AVD group here, but we also have Amazon Workspaces here, all in the same console. So it's very easy for them to manage both groups of end users, even though they're using different technologies. So further looking through this, you start off with a dashboard view. It gives you your overall metrics of the environment, what's happening. So it makes it very easy to see if there's any of the metrics that are out of line. Latency is spiking, launch times are spiking, etc. There's also trend data that goes along with this, so you can see if there are things, maybe latency is starting to gradually increase, and maybe that's an indication that there's some network slowness, or maybe there's under-provisioned session hosts. If you feel like there's an issue with the host pools or the hosts themselves, you can drill into that. You can get additional metrics on each of these and understand what the performance of the underlying infrastructure is. And then you can even drill down into the end users' sessions to understand what the experience is for those end users. We've got threshold lines built in as well. And then you can see the metrics over time for the end user's experience. So it makes it very easy for them to understand what's happening with that end user's experience as they're piloting this new technology. This would require 3 different tools for AVD and 3 different tools for Amazon Workspaces to get this if they were trying to do this through native tools. Now, if you were help desk, you might start at the alert dashboard, and they might be looking at this, trying to understand that they're piloting, right? So they've got trend data on all of the alerting. So that trend data lets them see if there are alert storms starting to form. This was a new environment for them, so they're not sure how it's going to behave. So this gives them the first glance at understanding whether or not there are issues that are starting to arise that are in large scale. But then they can see the individual alerts, things around latency, around launch time, environmental alerts as well. So they have the ability to go in and troubleshoot and monitor specific issues. So they could click on an alert, they get the data for that particular individual's alert. They could go back into, if it's a Workspaces, Amazon Workspaces, or if it's a AVD, they could go back into, look at that particular user session, for instance, say that they were experiencing latency. And then what they're going to do at help desk level, they're not going to troubleshoot this, but they are going to be able to take this link right here, drop it back into the ticket or into Teams or Slack or however they're communicating, and send that to the next escalation team and point them exactly to where the issue is that is impacting those particular users. And again, these are for the 200 users that are on AVD and Amazon Workspaces, but they still have to monitor and manage the end user experience for those who are still on Citrix. So they still have the ability to come in and monitor those end users as well. All right, let me set up the next use case. And again, if you've got questions at any point, go ahead and put those into the question and answer panel, and we will make sure that we get to those. All right, this is going to be where I'll bring Martin on in just a second, but setting this up, you've got an organization now. They're wanting to do a cloud migration. So they're going from on-prem to cloud. They've got some Citrix, actually they're primarily Citrix. They've got some Horizon VDI that came through an acquisition. So it's, you know, it's something else that they have managed, but they're moving everybody off of Citrix and Horizon up to Nerdio, or I'm sorry, up to AVD, and they're going to manage it using Nerdio for management and optimization. Now, the challenges that these guys are looking to overcome, first thing they want to do is baseline their end user experience. So they want to know empirically what the actual end user experience is, because they know that the moment they make a change, all of their end users are going to get very emotional because they're removing something that they're comfortable with and they're adding something new to the mix. So they want an actual baseline of what that end user experience looks like. And then they're going to first move the 1,000 VDI users that they have, and then follow that by the 6,000 Citrix users that they have. And again, they need centralized monitoring for all this, and they're hoping to complete this migration within the next 6 months. So with that, let me go ahead and switch over to Martin so he can jump in and take the next part of the demo for you.
Thanks, Gary.
No problem.
Yeah, let me know when my screen is visible over here.
There you are. All right.
And is that coming through?
Yes, looks good.
All right, awesome. So where I'd like to actually start everybody here as we go through a migration process, right, on-premise to cloud here. One key thing that's going to be important as we get in here is that first bullet point, is you're seeing the baselining end user experience. And one of the key ways we're able to accomplish that with the on-premise environments before we even start moving into the cloud is going to be by some of the analytics and reporting that Goliath offers. What you guys are seeing at this point is one of our main ways we get some of that analytics and reporting objectively out of Goliath, and that's going to be the end user experience scorecard here in a particular format based on fault isolation analytics. What that means is over the course of a time frame, say for example the past few weeks or the past month or even just a couple of days, whatever we'd like to look at to baseline user experience, we're able to take all users who have accessed your Horizon VDI or your Citrix environment and pull all of their sessions. Say, for example, in the top left here, this report having analyzed just over 10,000 users. Then being able to come down and evaluate all of the user experience KPIs that occur in every one of those sessions. Things like latency and network impacts, as well as available bandwidth. We compare those against industry best practices and elicit a score. By the comparison of industry best practices, you're seeing these sort of color highlights. And what we're doing is pulling some totals for you, such that what we're able to do is start with that 10,000 and identify that out of 10,000, only 1,200 of our users are actually being impacted by some kind of issue. Objectively, again, not relating on anything to user ticket volumes, hearsay, anything like that we have to rely on. This way, we know exactly just how broad or narrow user experience issues might be in our existing deployment before we even start introducing things like the new logos of, say, Amazon or Azure that our users might start to see and blame issues that may have been pre-existing on those new things, right? So we can see exactly how many, in this case, 1,200 of the 10,000 users impacted, which not terribly small, could definitely be a significant portion of our users. However, we can even get a little bit deeper into that by looking at the full breakdown of every user, and notice that just in the top screenshot of the report here that continues a bit further down because there's quite a few rows. However, only 10 or so of these users are actually in what would be considered the red zone of user experience, meaning they're experiencing critical levels of problems within, say, latency or experience in that session, such that we'd want to do something about it. We know where those issues are concentrated, say, for example, within the network or bandwidth. By nature of these being over time, we can understand the sort of frequency and duration, right? Be able to generate this report and see who our frequent flyers in the low section of scoring is. And furthermore, be able to start to understand root cause of those problems. Say, for example, if these issues are tracking back to a particular site or department in the environment, we may want to keep a close eye on those users to see if their experience changes as we start moving through a migration, or to see if more users start to fall into a particular category of, say, poor user experience, all by just starting to baseline and then continuing to run this over time as we start with the migration.
Part of what's important about this is, in this particular use case, it's used to baseline, right? To understand what that user experience looks like today, so we can measure it against the changes that we know are coming tomorrow. This particular example here, the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but this example was an actual use case it was from a different use case from a customer, where they were actually trying to understand that the IT team was getting hammered on all of their surveys. Support tickets were coming in, and they were basically, the impression was that the entire organization was having these critical user experience issues. And I'm sort of vague on the details so that I don't make any identifying remarks. But what they did was they came to us to help identify exactly who was having issues. So when they deployed Goliath and they ran this report, they found out that of the 10,000 users that they have in their organization, only 1,200 were having issues. Now, I say only sort of tongue in cheek. That's about 12%. That's a lot of people who are having issues, but it's certainly not the entire organization. And as Martin pointed out, truly only, about 10 or so were actually having critical issues. So the perception versus reality of what the experience that was being delivered from the IT team to those end users was very, very different. So that's multiple ways to use a report like this. For this particular use case, of course, we're talking about baselining, but it's a really important opportunity to be able to see easily, quickly, exactly who's impacted when there are issues, what the frequency and duration of those issues are, and as Martin pointed out, drawing correlations so that you can get to the probable root cause. If you look at these 10 individuals who are having the critical issues, they're almost all isolated to a single location. And it ended up being a scenario where there was a Wi-Fi routers in that particular location hadn't been reset. Nobody knew when they were reset last. So this fix was super simple, but it was next to impossible for them to actually figure out what was wrong without the right technology and visibility. So sorry, Martin, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to sort of share where this actual screenshot came from.
Oh, absolutely, and really helpful for adding a little bit of color to exactly what we're showing here, right?
So Martin, let's change gears a little bit, because this is right. The use case is about baselining here, but now we've got Horizon users, we've got Citrix users, they're moving to AVD. Let's talk about Horizon, okay? So maybe there's an issue with, oh, you know what? You've got one more baseline report you wanted to show. I didn't mean to cut you off there. That was around logons, right?
Oh, correct, yes. Let me go ahead and just jump back over. There we go. Just one other location, just as we go ahead and mention the baselining, right? Maybe it's latency, maybe it's also something like logons, right? Logon performance and everything, especially as we get into things like cloud-based connections where those users are going to be potentially even interacting less, doing things like SSO or anything like that. Those users might not know at all what's going on, and we need to compare and again baseline things like logon performance, which in a very similar fashion, able to do objectively, again, compare against industry best practices or SLAs and identify exactly where, say, users might be having worse problems rather than maybe better ones, and then, of course, go from there when it comes to the new experience.
All right, so let's so that's about baselining, right? That was the first challenge that they had, but they still have to monitor and troubleshoot end user experience throughout this migration. So let's imagine there's a ticket that comes in. There's some users that are complaining that actually can't access their VDI. There's something wrong and they're trying to log in and they can't get there. How can we help them with that?
Yeah, great question. And it brings up a really interesting problem that we tend to see a lot of folks struggle with when it comes to managing a remote access environment, especially one that in our example here, right, we might have users coming from 3 or 4 different locations trying to access the VDI and or Citrix environments. And so in this case, it'll be really important to understand just where an issue might be happening, right? Is the user that we're hearing from only remote, only from a specific site, or is this a more broad issue? How many more users are going to complain? Is this a widespread problem, right? And in all cases here, we don't want to have to be reacting just to the tickets as they come in. We get the first one, we start looking into it, all of a sudden we look back and there's 8 more tickets around the same problem, and we're already falling behind in that whole troubleshooting process. One feature that's within the Goliath product here that you'll see is going to be our early warning system. This is going to help get ahead of those availability issues when it comes to users who say, you know, every so often we can't log in or something like that, especially if we're going to be doing things like changes, maybe upgrades or overhauls to the environment as part of migration process. We definitely will need to baseline when we see issues accessing or anything, any impacts from changes. So what you're going to see in our early warning system here is Goliath's ability to baseline availability and logon times to any of your remote access platforms, whether that's Horizon, whether that's Citrix. You'll see over on the top here, baselined logon duration, as well as overall availability. How frequently are we seeing failures, or are we seeing longer logon times as of recently? Being able to baseline this from a various stage perspective. And then when it comes to investigating, be able to click right into an analysis tab, which is going to be designed for helping us dig into exactly when issues might be experienced. Say, for example, we were seeing an issue a little bit outside the past hour or so. You can go ahead and filter back and immediately get results on things like logons that have been out of the recommended duration that we're going for, or potentially issues that resulted in a logon failure. With each and every test that this is synthetically executed from each of your locations, so generally deployed from a hospital floor, from an office, right, wherever it might be, a supply closet, even some of our customers use, or even just deployed in the cloud. If you're going to be going hybrid, we may as well have a endpoint spun up in a data center based on our major geographic locations. In any of those cases, be able to come in and see logins from those various locations or sites, the different resources that we're going to be testing in each and every case, be able to click in and see from the end user's perspective exactly how a login would have gone. Seeing logging and things as we go through and send in requests to the Horizon client in this case, get our responses, and then see a full response with a presentation, exactly what we would expect from access to a resource in, say, the VDI environment here, or from, say, like a Citrix side, be able to do very similarly in every case here, helping to get ahead of access issues before those end users are impacted, as well as not have to rely on those users to describe maybe an error pop up that they saw or any other issues that could start impacting users from one or multiple locations.
You know, we actually had an interesting use case for this. It wasn't part of a migration. They were using this feature. It was a health system. they were using this feature to ensure that clinicians always had access to their EHR application. And they had this running. There was a situation about 4:30 in the morning. The IT team got a notification that their EHR was down. Electronic health records is for anybody that's not on the call that is unfamiliar with an EHR. It's the electronic health records application that your doctor uses to type your information into. Anyways, this application is critical, right? Like that is the #1 most critical application for any health system, for any doctor, for any hospital. And the IT team got a notification that it was down. Now, they were able to quickly go into gear. They opened up Goliath. They were able to go in and see exactly what was wrong. So they clicked into the failed sessions. They could see exactly where the issue was. It was happening at the enumeration stage. Long story short, they had an update. The Citrix team didn't publish the application. They either didn't publish it or they didn't publish it correctly. I'm not exact. I don't remember which was the case. At any rate, when the clinicians went to log in, it wasn't there. And so this impacted 25,000 users if they were all online. But because it happened at 4:30 in the morning, the IT team got early warning that there was a problem. They were able to fix it before those 25,000 users were impacted and before they got the absolute deluge of support tickets that would have absolutely come 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning when everybody started getting in for that next shift. So really cool use case for this particular function. Now, Martin, continuing on, this is an environment that's got Horizon VDI. They also have Citrix as well. So they're migrating the Horizon group first. They're still going to have the Citrix. What about when we have those vague tickets? This comes in, most of you on this call are probably familiar with these Citrix is slow tickets that come in. No details, no information. End users aren't technical, so they don't know what to tell you anyways. But you just get the Citrix is broken again today ticket that comes in. Martin, can you go through how quick and easy it can be to get to the root cause of an issue like that? Usually it's something tied to connection speed. Oftentimes it's connected to something that the user is actually doing on their side. Can you just walk us through a quick scenario on what that would look like?
Absolutely. And I'll note this workflow is just as easy, whether we're going through something like Citrix, which I'll show you now in regards to this specific example, but also for things like Horizon or any of the cloud-based platforms that will support as well. This is one of the main workflows we're designed to help with. And so going to make it as easy as possible for you to get down to the data that you need. In this case, maybe we get a Citrix is slow complaint from a user. If we're lucky enough, we've got the particular user time frame and everything that we can look up to identify, say, for example, when a user had a slow session. Worst case, however, maybe we don't get many details and we just need to identify who are all of our users who have had slow sessions in the past amount of time. What you're seeing on the page here that I'm filtering through is a bunch of Citrix sessions. In this case, since I'm on the Citrix section here. Could do something very similar to Horizon, but one thing that Goliath is going to be doing is retaining data historically. So I can see exactly how users' behavior, or say times that they access Citrix, is trending or differing, and how their user experience is impacted as a result. Say, for example, we get a ticket from this user right here, and we notice that their session is in fact slow with an average round trip time of about a half a second that I'm noticing in the middle of the screen here. However, I can see this is not the case when they work from our company provided Chromebooks, for example, right? And so be able to take note of these things as part of the troubleshooting process makes it extremely easy. But then of course, diagnostics can be done in as little as 1 to 2 clicks. By just selecting into a user session, you get all of the data tied to this user experience. Front to end, so start to end, log on to log off or disconnect, as little as 13 minutes in our case here. We're gonna have all the same data even if the user was in for a longer period of time or whatever time frame. We've got a series of tabs along the top here. Each are designed to give you data from those different resources that you might need to access in Citrix on premise. This might be 3 or 4 different tools. With larger IT teams, this is going to be requests out to other contacts and having to work between teams interdepartmentally, for example, to try and correlate data. Or, for example, even up in the cloud, similar workflows are going to require, as we were illustrating earlier, 4 to 6, even up to 10 different monitoring tools, depending on the types of data that you need to see. Goliath's designed to make this all easy to get down to exactly what's relevant. And in this case, say, for example, we get a complaint that Citrix is slow. It's as simple as coming down to something like the user session performance to start. Looking at things like round trip time built in with those same cautionary and critical threshold lines you'll see throughout our product platform. You'll see exactly when the user was experiencing problems and be able to investigate things like root cause, whether it was the virtual machine that the user was on. In on-premise scenarios, things like the hypervisor host underlying, or even things like the network that was impacting this user. Given the section we want to dig into, say, for example, this column here, since I'm seeing some pretty high numbers, I can take 2 clicks into troubleshooting now, right? And I have all the data at my fingertips to understand exactly what was going on, what kind of latency was experienced, how much of that latency came from, say, the network. This is, in this case, a Citrix-specific metric. Again, all of our metrics are going to be, say, Horizon-specific, AVD-specific, whatever it may be. But in this case, a diagnostic of that Citrix ICA channel, how much network latency was coming from it, and then further root cause analysis, how much bandwidth the user had to work with over the course of the session based on where that client device was coming from, and if, say, that workspace version was up to date, even down to user behavior. So if this user did not have a lot of bandwidth to work with, for example, and they were trying to stream a large amount of video in a session, in this case, that's what the thin wire here will indicate, graphics within a Citrix session, allowing us to understand when those workflows are higher than we would want to see for something like the amount of bandwidth available, and get down to potential user-driven root cause within the session here, that we can then have that conversation with the user, oftentimes even do something like a screenshot, as simple as that, to be able to work with the user, leveraging objective data and start to remediate, again, after just 2 clicks and maybe 30 seconds of looking at some data.
And all the while, right, they still have their new AVD users. So can you just jump back over to the AVD environment and the alert dashboard?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, this is designed to be the same similar or same easy workflow, right? So you've got a link right over here to your cloud data, where you can come over to the alerting dashboard for the AVD environment. We're here, for example, now we can start to see where Goliath is picking up on when those user latency values have crossed the critical threshold lines, right? Be able to click in, see the user impacted, the time frame, and everything. And in this case, a couple of clicks again into the Azure environment for AVD and head down to our user's session within our time frame to go drilling into this user session, latency, and specific values that were experienced.
All right, let's move on to the next use case, Martin, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Seeing that up there. So this is going to be a use case where you've got a hybrid environment, right? They're not trying to migrate everybody from one thing to another. They're going to maintain multiple environments. In this case, it's an MSP, but it doesn't have to be an MSP, right? It could be a single organization that just knows they're going to have an on-prem environment. They're also going to have a cloud environment, and different users are going to be using the different technologies. But in this case, it's an MSP. They've got about 15,000 users that they're monitoring. Currently, everybody is on-prem. They're using Citrix. They use thick clients on iGel, and they also use Chromebooks. So that's something else that we're throwing into the mix. Now, they are going to transition 2 of their customers to AVD, accessing it via Chromebook. So 2,000 for one customer, 3,000 for another. What they're looking for is centralized monitoring, because they've got multiple customers who are all going to be using multiple EUC technologies now. So centralized monitoring becomes very important for them. They are concerned about the complexity particularly in this case of the Azure monitoring tools, but native monitoring tools just inherently are complex. They also want to enable help desk to do more than just pass tickets along. They want to reduce the amount of escalations that are making it all the way up to the engineers and architects. And in part of that, they want to do more proactive troubleshooting, so ways that they can leverage automation and AI. And then one of the concerns that they're trying to mitigate, I don't have it listed here, is reducing Azure costs or Azure charges for these new clients who are going to be moving to AVD. So they're also going to leverage Nerdio to help optimize those environments. But one of the concerns that they have is the charging that they get for alerting. So that's something, as they think about proactive troubleshooting, there's a cost, an Azure cost that comes with that they're trying to mitigate as well. So with that, sort of teeing that up, Martin, why don't we look at, let's talk about help desk first, right? So we want to enable help desk. Let's just start first with the AVD environment, if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
So from a help desk perspective, when they are, a lot of times help desk just, they route tickets. If it says Citrix, it gets kicked over to the Citrix admin. If it's AVD, it gets kicked up to the AVD team. In this case, help desk has a solution that makes it a lot easier for them to actually do some triage before they route the ticket. So if you go to the alert dashboard, so help desk gets a ticket that comes in, possibly maybe they're even just being proactive, but they can go right to the alert for that particular end user, click on that alert, they can get the alert details, and then they can take those details, and it's going to tell them things like who the user is, what the host is, host pools, etc. So they know exactly where to go to look for the issue. Now they can go into and drill down wherever they need to drill down to see where the issue is at. In this case, we'll go to an end user session. We can see that there's an issue with this particular end user session. They're experiencing some latency. Now they can go up, they can click that share button, they can add that right back into the ticket, or they can communicate via Slack or Teams or however it is they're communicating. And when they escalate it, they now are pointing the escalation team to exactly where the issue is. So they're not having to waste time wondering where the issue is not. The help desk team has now been able to do some triage for those new AVD users, making it easier and faster for the escalation team to actually take care of that. But it's not just from the AVD side, right? They've got also Citrix users as well. A common issue that comes in to help desk for these MSPs are complaints about hung Citrix sessions. So Martin, if you want to go back to the Citrix environment, we can look at maybe a scenario where there's a hung session. A lot of times what happens, and I will raise my hand, I worked at Citrix for 8 years. I used Citrix for those 8 years, and I was one of the guilty ones who never logged off of my sessions. I just disconnected or I just closed my laptop. And so it didn't take long after a week or two for my sessions to start getting really slow or to hang up. And I would spend time down in the IT cafe, we called it, and getting help trying to understand what the issue was, when most of the time it was as simple as just logging off the session and reconnecting. So Martin, why don't you walk us through what that might look like? This is something that the help desk can do, right? There's not a lot of troubleshooting that has to happen here. This is triage, real quick, on-demand remediation action.
Yeah, absolutely. And the workflow couldn't be easier for something like a help desk technician, right? Coming into Goliath, just like we showed with, say, the AVD, being able to drill down to a user, similar ways in the on-premise, say, Citrix environment, being able to search up that user or view whatever trending we'd like. In this case, I've got things in a chronological order for some sessions, and I can see in the most recent couple of sessions, since Goliath does pull all of that data historically, I can see that exact trend, just like you described, Kiri, disconnect, and maybe the user starts to complain about latency, about performance, load times, whatever it might be in this session. I can continue to drill down into the user and be able to verify things like latency spikes, connection speed issues that we might be seeing. Again, all with the same cautionary and critical threshold lines, interpretation and everything. But if it's as simple as a quick help desk action, such as a disconnect or log off, that can be done in a single click right up from here as we're investigating. Or if it's even simpler and we want to do it right from this screen, also available to be able to go ahead and log off that user, reset that session, and get that user back in on a fresh connection that hopefully doesn't have as much history of disconnects behind it.
So Martin, we're looking at some ways that help desk can get involved with a little bit more of the triage work, right, before they have to escalate. One of the things that in this particular use case we're trying to reduce is the actual number of escalations, and there are ways to do that with AI and automation. Can you talk a little bit about how they can leverage AI and automation in that capacity? Help desk can leverage AI, and then the IT team in general can set up some automation that can help reduce those tickets.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple of ways that Goliath can help with this. So I'll go ahead and start in the same context we're currently talking with the help desk, and then I can move over to the sort of general IT and a little bit more automation that Goliath can help assist with. Starting with the AI, you'll see built into the product here an AI assistant up at the top right. This is a chatbot fully trained on all of the data that Goliath monitors across all of the different desktop virtualization platforms, popular troubleshooting workflows or blog posts that have been extremely helpful within, say, consulting engagements or anything that we've done, as well as troubleshooting tips along the way. So say, for example, we're a help desk technician walking into that same complaint about a long logon or maybe a slow session, right? Being able to click into any of these sessions, go ahead and start diagnosing maybe latency problems, dips in connection speed, or maybe it's a long logon that we're trying to troubleshoot. Whatever case, things within Citrix or any of the desktop virtualization platforms can get a little bit niche a little bit quickly, which is why we can have the AI assistant here. It's fully designed to help us through this. So say, for example, we're seeing a client-side session creation is taking extra long, right? Go ahead and be able to ask the AI exactly what's going on here, what does that mean, or what can cause it, and be able to get some suggestions as to where to go and what data to look at. You'll notice just about all of the things to look into here, things like network delays, maybe it's infrastructure configuration, additional resources within the environment are all able to be looked at here within the product. So we don't really have to go far to be able to get down to root cause and be able to point whether it's escalations in the right direction, or in an ideal scenario is the whole goal here, be able to get down to full root cause and resolution without ever needing to escalate to another party.
And this, this is perfect for a scenario where, you went a little bit deeper than probably a, typical level 1 help desk is going to be able to go. However, you might get to the point there where that got moved up to level 2. They might have enough general knowledge to be able to get to at least the area where is the likely root cause, so that when it does have to move up to the engineer or architect, they've already done all of the removal of where it's not. So again, we can't eliminate all escalations, right? Because there's just some things that are just technically too deep at the sort of lower levels of the escalation path. But if we can eliminate all the noise and point them directly to the most likely root cause, that is a massive, massive savings in time. And that's just leveraging AI to help with that. But there's also automation that can eliminate the in large part the tickets altogether. Talk a little bit about that, Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll do to illustrate this a little better is I've just migrated you guys on over to our automatic discovery and dependency map in the product. This is one great illustration of how Goliath starts to get a little bit more proactive around noticing issues that can impact your users, but also being able to include information to reduce escalations or even automate resolutions altogether. What you're seeing here is one of the things that Goliath builds automatically when we deploy the product is an automatic discovery and dependency map of the environment. This is a really good illustration of that exact value point, Carrie, that you just brought up of being able to identify where issues are. Say, for example, the bright red node here as opposed to where issues are not, and allowing us to not have to spend time looking in places where the problem is not going to be. Goliath's looking on an ongoing basis for hundreds of different events, conditions, and failure points in the environment that can impact user experience. This particular view that you're seeing, you'll see is dedicated to the delivery infrastructure. So this is going to be extremely important to things like logon duration, some of those configuration items that the AI just pointed out to us, or even general connection with things like licensing or database issues as things that can impact users on an ongoing basis. You'll see Goliath looking in this case on the delivery controller, lighting it up red, telling us, hey, there's a problem here. Being able to click into this node, this particular machine now, see things like resource utilization, context-specific health checks, as well as additional information on exactly what Goliath has picked up. I can see exactly what's happening, where I need to focus my time and attention, and where I can potentially eliminate spending time. Now being able to look into particular, say, application faults or full-on broker service errors that would actually impact individual users. And then from the IT team configuration standpoint, be able to add workflows into Goliath that we can use to reduce escalation or automatically remediate issues by including company-specific notes, things relevant to your own organization that you can pass down to the tier 1 technician who's going to be receiving this at the start, and be able to have points of contact, KB articles, or additional steps for common workflows that the IT, say architects, admins, or whoever would generally do in an escalation that we can pass down to the lower teams to be able to resolve. Or if it's a very simple action, such as a script restart, a program, or maybe even a highly complex script that the team has put together, you can have Goliath go ahead and execute that as soon as we see a problem and be able to notify you when the issue occurs, as well as when the issue is fixed. So being able to put all of that in automatically to take work off of the team, not only at the escalation points, but even the initial help desk to begin with.
And even for that new environment, if you'll go over to the AVD environment, the alert dashboard there as well. Even for the new environment, you're going to have alerting, you're going to have trend data as well. So there's a lot of options for proactive troubleshooting, getting ahead of issues before they impact end users, regardless of the EUC technology. And all of these thresholds, all of these alerts, by the way, are all customizable. They're set up based on industry best practices, but you know, you might have a location that is in a geography that is notorious for high latency. So you don't want to get an alert storm on latency issues when you know that there's already going to be a high latency issue at a particular location. So you can adjust those thresholds so that they accommodate for that. And you can also select, again, whether, you know, who and whether or not you want to actually be notified for any of these alerting. So you've got opportunities that help desk all the way through the escalation points can be part of the troubleshooting process, but only brought in when they need to be brought in. So it's not an automatic, there's a Citrix ticket, boom, we're kicking it over to the Citrix admin. There's an AVD ticket, we're automatically kicking it to the AVD team. We're enabling organizations to monitor all of these environments from a single console and more functions for the help desk team to be able to take before things have to be escalated. So we're going to pause right there for just a moment, and we'll take some questions before we wrap up. We're coming up here on time. You guys have been very active in the chat, so I appreciate that. We have lots of questions. First question, I'm just going to kind of rapid fire these. First question is there anything that needs to be installed on endpoints? You didn't specify specifically, you know, what type of environment you're talking about, but that's okay, because in either case, whether it's Citrix, whether it's Horizon VDI, Amazon Workspaces, AVD, no agents, no endpoint client needs to be installed. This is a question about AVD. Do you get host and host pool metrics? Yes, we do. In fact, you have the ability to drill down into host and host pool and get down to the VM level and see exactly what the performance of the resources of the individual virtual machines are as well. Is there a limit to the size environment that can be monitored? No, and it doesn't matter. Again, this was not a question. You guys didn't specify whether or not you were talking about Citrix or Horizon or AVD. Doesn't matter. There is no limit to the size of environment that can be monitored. So we have clients that are large enterprises. In fact, we have some of the largest health systems in the world. And we also have small SMB clients as well. So we have a price point that is an ease of use that is easy for and accessible for anyone, regardless of size, to access. And we have the ability to scale to even the largest enterprises. They want to know, can they try AVD monitoring? Absolutely. We'll drop a link in the chat for a trial. Reach out to you as well and follow up on that. Along those same lines, we do offer trials and POCs, and those come with sort of personal white glove support when we have the trials and the POCs. So we'll help you get everything for if you're monitoring just AVD and Amazon or Amazon. It's self-service, super easy. It takes about 10 minutes. There's about 5 credentials you need: client ID, subscription ID, secret, etc. You input that information into the application, and within about 15 minutes, your data is populating. If you're interested in trialing for on-prem environments like Citrix or Horizon, you'll be up and running in less than 2 hours, and you'll see your data start populating right around that 2-hour mark. All right, questions about how it's licensed. This is per user, super easy, per user pricing. Do we offer migration services? That's an excellent question because that is something that is strapping IT teams. It's hard enough to sort of manage existing environments. Now you've got multiple in the transition in place. Yes, we absolutely can work with you and help with migration services as well. All right, one more question in here. Can you monitor multiple cloud environments? Yes. So it's not just, by the way, AVD and Amazon Workspaces, but it's also the cloud EC2, Azure virtual machines. And if you have multiple instances, like in the one use case, we actually had an MSP who had multiple customers. Those can all be monitored from a single console and very easy to identify and get from one environment to the next. All right. With that, thank you everyone for coming. We're right at the top of the hour, and we will see you on the next session. Thanks again. And Martin, great job. Thank you for providing the technical resource support as well. Bye, everyone.
Of course. Thanks for your time, everybody.